everything everything
All
you
right.
do will like leave a track behind. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
What do you guys think?
I really like the concept, but one thing is when I first saw it, I didn't notice the person behind the mask. Like I feel like it should be more prominent, whether like the lines are thicker, outlining his face, just so that we know that that mask is coming off of that person's face or the mask is coming on, whichever one you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I like what you have with the mask so far. Like, I feel like it looks really good. One thing for me is I feel like, other than the mask and the face, you really don't have anything behind that. It's just very like blank. So
Yeah.
maybe like you could add something to the rest of the image.
Yeah.
What would be a suggestion for like what he could add to blend into his theme?
I'm thinking maybe like some social media icons, like or pages that like would like store your information, or maybe like a PNG of like a Google search bar of somebody typing in something, I don't know, crazy, and then hitting like the delete button. I don't know.
I like especially what you've got going on in like the top right-hand corner of the mask, with like the repeated sign-in parts. And I feel like it could be cool maybe to try to lean
Other
into like
words.
the overwhelmingness of that, and like if you kind of just like extrapolated those out and duplicated a bunch of them and made them a bit bigger, and it was like, you know, like sign in, login page, like email, da 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 da, like all over the place, it would
Yeah.
kind of show more like just how incessant it all is in like every service you go online, like every page you open up, you have to sign into something. It's like you've got it started over there with the three of those, and that kind of just got me thinking about that and how that could kind of look cool if they were like pushing in on each other and just like all over the place. That's what I would think.
Thank you for your advice.
What do you guys think about the colors being used right now? Or colors and or those areas as shapes, and maybe like how we could activate it somehow.
I think I should like have more color in my project.
Well, yeah, maybe. I'm just seeing anybody has any thoughts while we have the time.
Maybe adding like I think I seen Instagram. For Instagram, they have like their like brand colors as like purple,
Yeah.
yellow, and whatever. So maybe you can keep like the wording, but just change the color to like Instagram's brand colors to like make it like pop.
I see.
Thought that was my alarm for a second.
Hi, I don't know if I missed this in your explanation, but is there a reason for why you chose the purple?
Why choose over? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, is there like a specific reason why you chose that specific color of purple? I don't know if I missed it in your explanation or if you just didn't mention it.
Cause I think like purple is like it gives me a sense of like trying to hide, like hiding, I think. Also, I think purple is a color that might highlight the contrast between the mask and the human face. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
So, reading your statement or your proposal here, saying the person is not fully covered by that mask since the main idea is about how online accounts can reveal your true identity. So, if the true identity is being revealed, don't you want to have some of that identity on the person, not on the mask?
Yeah, that's true though.
Right? Like, don't we want to? The mask is covering up whatever it is that we're concealing. So it's almost. Is it almost backwards how you have it then, or?
Yeah, I think I should put some words like your home address or payment options on the person's face. Cause my idea is like nothing's safe online. So
Yeah, because you're talking, and it's also, it doesn't seem, you have WeChat here, but you also have Instagram, and you're mentioning that you're trying to focus it on WeChat, and the assumption that you're required to have that social identification number associated with it. So I'm not convinced yet that that's what we are looking at, right? So I think there needs to be some kind of overarching WeChat themed component here that's making that notion evident about a number, right? This account is your number, or the person behind has a number associated to them, and the mask is doing something to that number, maybe, right? Maybe that somebody making a lot of noise here. Hang, just gotta be careful with your mics. So maybe the mask could be somewhat transparent somehow, or a gradient that has a transparent color in there some way. So things to be thinking about.
okay.
I still think it kind of works because if the idea is supposed to be this kind of identifier, images on Instagram can be geotagged, which can lead to figure out where you were, where you go to school, or where you might live.
Yeah.
So I can see the logic behind it.
Okay, yeah, Anthony, do you want to give us a breakdown of yours?
All right. The Earn It Act, which you brought to my attention last week, about like an article saying it's unconstitutional, and I was right because it's on the Fourth Amendment. It alludes to a right to privacy, which being able to collect data on and censor things on like public forums, as well as ending some encryption to be able to get easier, in order for the authorities to have easier access to certain things to allow for criminal justice. Well, the point is, they think that there's no problem with that. And many of the people in Congress and Department of Justice don't know much about technology. So when you end up having a back door, it can be exploited and abused. I have absolutely no idea if you guys can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
I can't hear a thing.
Oh, let me send this to everyone. Yeah, so maybe if everybody can, if Anthony can't hear us, you can't hear me at all, Anthony?
I got it. Yeah, I think the volume was way too loud. I'm not sure how that worked out.
Okay, that's good. What do you guys think?
I like the theme behind the piece.
I'm sorry?
I like the use of the Constitution in the back for like the wall with the notice signs.
Yeah, but
To show like.
I realize my mistake now. If it's
Oh,
violating the Fourth Amendment, I should probably put the Fourth Amendment. I think that's Article 1 and Article 2. No, it's Article 1, Section 1, 2, and 3 is cut off.
yeah, but I like how you used like a piece of the law to show your point off. I like that part.
I have to figure out how to get the gradient of a transparent value. It doesn't work for me. And it's this problem right here. Oh, you can't see my screen.
So does everybody get a clear sense of what is being said here? Anybody have a question on it?
I can tell that you're trying to portray the corruption in the government. So I definitely see like that you're trying to point out that there's corruption for sure, especially with displaying, we the people, and then all the notices, and then the DOJ like coming out of the door. What are you trying? Are you saying like the DOJ is your main point in exposing corruption in the government? Like that's the main subject?
It's less corruption and just negligence. They say, oh, don't worry. This way of doing things, nothing can go wrong. Meanwhile, all the tech experts saying, yes, that's exactly how things go wrong. So it's not so much corruption, more like they're not listening, they don't understand. And so, you know what? Things need to be a little easier.
So I guess I'm still in a sense of trying to walk through.
Okay, I'm back. Someone was singing.
Yeah, so Anthony, I'm still trying to walk through the visuals and try to make meaning of it, like piece it together. And if this whole like wall as it stands is representing the Constitution, and we're looking at this door,
What's behind? What's on the other side that we don't see?
yeah, because right now if we're the
I see the
people
purple.
looking at this, it's almost, and then when you start reading these notices, no trespassing, private citizen keep out, like we don't have access to go through the Constitution or something to the DOJ. Whereas if you then read it backwards, like the DOJ is coming through the Constitution, the other side of that Constitution is a thief. That's what it looks like right now. It looks like the DOJ is coming through the back door, and there's a thief that's like speaking at the DOJ or something. Like it's not.
That is meant to be a shadow. Shadow is something that we usually don't think about, and it's supposed to represent, hey, there's someone else lurking in the background. That bad actor is going to exploit you being able to go through this back door to obtain things they probably shouldn't have access to. I should probably make that more apparent.
So the thief is a shadow of the DOJ.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, like if you're casting a shadow on the silhouette of the scale, it's probably just going to need rearranging to where it looks like the letters are stretching from the object itself, so that it holds up that a little bit more. Yeah, and if that thief is coming through this door, casting a shadow into what looks like cyberspace, is there anything on that other end potentially that it's trying to be in the active situation of thieving?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, how to visualize that part.
Sure.
Because I tried it with the floor to make you realize that, hey, this is a digital space.
I think that comes across. It's just not so evident as to like, oh, they're coming, like, why are they coming through this, right? Are they're stealing your information or, whatever. I think some of that of like why should be represented. So if you need more space at the bottom, you could always shift the doorway and the wall up and over, and then just, retile whatever that Constitution part on the wall is. You know what I mean? If you need more space for the shadow, for example, you could reorient it so you have more room down there. But I think that's what you want to make sure you focus on, is getting that shadow apparent and like how is it reading? Okay, let's continue here. All right, up to Bay here.
Okay, so my project is exploring how social media affects people. So the one side of the face is kind of what's portrayed on social media, like the pictures people post and all that. And then the other side is what social media makes them think about themselves. And then in the background, I haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm going to do like a swirl, almost like a hypnotic sort of thing, incorporating words in there about how it almost like hypnotizes people. And then through the face, I'm going to incorporate more words, kind of portraying both sides of what I'm trying to say.
And I think it might be worth noting that at least your initial goal is that you're focusing on specifically teenagers, young adults.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in terms of like graphical composition, I like how the subtle differences in the two faces show kind of like the different emotions, but they're not super evident. You can kind of just feel it. And they also kind of both work as like profile views and as head-on views. because it's split down the middle of like a head-on view.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they also work as profile. Like when I first saw it, it looked like they were looking at each other, two different faces. And so I kind of like the way that that worked out. I think that was really good.
Thank you.
I think that the split image works really well because it shows a contrast of both, like what social media does, how social media makes people feel about themselves as far as feeling beautiful or more confident, and then it shows the other side of how it can make someone feel, not worthy or not normal. So I think that was a good idea to do that, to have both kind of contrast one another with the main idea of social media being in the middle.
I also like in the background how you have a quote to kind of explain what your purpose is. And I like that it's not like obnoxious in the middle, but it's like hidden behind those social media icons. I think that was a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, when it comes to emotion, you pretty much captured it because the image on the right here looks drained almost. Emotions can drain you, make you feel empty, and there's this disastrous case. Screen. What am I doing? You're trying to incorporate text as image by making that an eyelash. I barely noticed it, which I guess means you're doing it correctly.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. Is like you first look at it and you see the image, and then you look closely and you notice the words.
I do have a question for you guys. Do you think it should be presented in any sort of other way, like each of these sides visually? Like, should we have the same hair, the same skin tone, the same, clean skin, versus lipstick on both or one? Is there any kind of way to visualize them separately, maybe towards the theme?
Are you referring to what is that, body dysmorphia? Where you just people say you look great, but you look in the mirror and you just look horrible to yourself. You don't understand why.
Well, I think that is the project she's representing, right?
Oh, yeah. So, I
I think
suppose.
maybe for like the side that says like I'm perfect, she could keep that it is, or glam it up a little bit more. And for the side that says like I am, oh, that says I'm wrong. For the other side that's like crying, maybe she could like dress it down a little bit, like maybe take the lipstick away and maybe show, instead of having her hair all neat and curly, maybe have it all over the place to kind of like show like the distress of, to kind of like show the bad side of social media, show that visually, because I know that the differences that I can see now is that on the right side it has the teardrops, um, and they both have different quotes. But I think it would be stronger if like you kind of made the second half of the image a little bit more distressed visually.
If you don't want to do the hair over entirely, you can just put random strands out of place.
Yeah, I don't know why it exported like this, but in Illustrator, kind of like the edges are cut off a little bit, so you don't see all the hair.
So yeah,
But
it's when you export, there's an option for artboard.
okay,
The artboard is like your canvas.
okay, so I should do that next
When
time.
exporting, yeah.
Yeah, because normally, like in Illustrator, when I am looking at it, it is cut off. So like at the bottom, you can see how it's like very messy, but normally that's cut off.
Yeah, I do want to make sure we keep going. I do have a few things to consider, and these, I guess, are kind of smaller components, but adding them up over time. I think it's really successful. You're playing with specific uses of type to like the script type for the eyebrow or the eyelashes. However, you don't have that for the like the labeling. I am perfect. I am normal, and so potentially like overlaying them on the tiers, like different letters on tiers, or if you have maybe makeup on the other side, the beautiful side, maybe you just have letters that are kind of warped and skewed out that are like, like a rosy tone, but transparent and like maybe a gradient on them. So it kind of represent, you could have like a couple laying over top of one another. So just using type to kind of speak for what you're saying, but also all the visual details maybe, because it's working well with the eyelashes. So, could replicate it. I am still curious about the background, how that might be able to influence rather than white.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to have a color theme. And
yeah, well, I don't know if you've heard, but I said I'm gonna do like a hypnotic sort of like swirl, like that black and white.
Okay, sorry.
Like when you think of like, you Google like hypnotic, like that's what you get, kind of that swirl.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I'm gonna go for.
Another thought I have is potentially the phone could be slightly tilted and like maybe under the beautiful side and slightly over the the reality side to kind of cast a shadow, a very light kind of shadow maybe. And through that, like the phone's a light source, so the shadow on the beautiful side might be able to be on the opposite side of the person. Just like small kind of details, but if the phone is tilted towards the beautiful, it might uphold that theme a little bit more. It will cut off the total kind of mirrored kind of effect, but it could help your legibility of your statement. And then I'm also not completely sold that you need all of the social media icons on there.
Okay.
Because you do also in the quote already mention Facebook. Do we need to know it's beyond Facebook? If so, maybe you can work stuff into the spiral itself rather than blatantly just plopping the logos on there. So different thoughts.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, let's
I always thought the words on the face, right, on under the tears, were cheekbones. Really question that.
Is this
I don't know why it exported like that. It's like a transparency, but it like exported bigger than the that image was supposed to be.
Yeah, it's probably the artboard conundrum. So
yeah. So my project was basically on how creators on YouTube get screwed over with by companies on fair use, because they'll put like clips, like small, like 15-second clips in or whatever, or like short clips of music in their videos, and the companies will just claim their video and take away all their revenue. So I showed like big like copyright claim hands from like an evil face destroying like fair use, and like the creator trapped in a cage because they can't do anything about it through YouTube, or else they can like or their channel could get like a strike, and that would be ultimately worse for them.
And so why does this matter?
Because ultimately companies are breaking, they're not respecting the law through fair use. They'll just claim any video with no regard to it because they know they have complete control. And then there's lots of creators on YouTube that would be creating like fantastic videos and stuff for people to enjoy. But they would be able to create more if they weren't getting all their money taken away, because then they would have to go work at like another job instead of like being able to work on YouTube for full time making content. And then the companies are stealing all the revenue with the content claim. So
okay, so yeah, do you guys see that all of these pieces in this image, or not? Does it read differently, or any thoughts on that?
I see all the pieces that you're talking about, but when it comes to fair use, especially on platforms like YouTube, there's two issues, especially in the United States. The first issue is many of the creators who claim fair use don't actually fall under fair use. It's not transformative in any way, especially if you're using like a very short clip, but it's the whole clip, and you're just doing a short commentary or reaction video. That's not really fair use.
Well, commentary is fair use because they show like a short clip of it, but then they're commentating over it, providing their analysis, so that would fall under fair use.
Well, not so much reaction videos where they're showing the entire clip.
Yeah, not reaction videos, but like commentary videos.
Those don't work.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like reaction videos where people are like watching the full clip or whatever, but like commentary videos, where they'll like play short clips throughout the video, but not like the full thing all at once. So, and they'll get claimed for stuff, or I've seen people get copyright claimed for like humming a song that's like too close. So, because I know I saw it on.
Well, hey guys, let's draw it back in. Let's make sure we get some more feedback.
Well,
not get too technical in the
so short version, it's a gigantic gray area. The second problem in America is that it's not really affordable to handle this on your own. You, as a small creator, you go bankrupt, and between some people claiming fair use when they're not really doing so, the image should probably also capture the fact that part of it may be their fault, very small percentage, and the other part is goes beyond the corporation, goes beyond YouTube, is the how the court system works, how completely expensive it is in the United States. Whereas, I believe the UK, there's a way to go about this on your own that won't break the bank.
So what you're suggesting here is you don't know if this is pertaining to all of YouTube or a specific country, specific category of fair use.
Well, ultimately,
you guys went on like a 4-minute talk, but I haven't yet heard anything in particular that evolves this image, like visually, like maybe in theory, but that's what I'm trying to go for, is like I think we've got enough information on what's going on here, but how could he move forward with trying to present what he's talking about?
The black background can be used to say there are other problems here, while the gigantic hands, encapsulating the content creator in a cage. That's the foreground. The background can be courts or lawyers, things that would make you realize, hey, this is scary enough. That's going to break me.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? See if we get a second, like any other opinions here.
I was going to say a similar thing about the black background. I feel like if you incorporated something else in there, it would help your image. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a whole nother image like Anthony suggested with the court scene, but even if you just incorporate more words in there, it'll help bring some more interest to the background and also help further your theme.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like to always point out a little bit of like that sense of reading the image, and right now I don't have a super firm grasp about all the legal legislation on these things, the actual, because I'm not a content creator. I've never researched the content creation for web use, sharing content. So from a very basic perspective, I'm looking at this and seeing like some monster, some evil, evil identity, creating or reaching out with a copyright claim and breaking fair use, right? I guess that's kind of how I'm reading it. A few other thoughts to me are, I guess the location of fair use isn't totally clear. And because it's white, it's blending with the gloves, or it's like relating to the gloves to me, but maybe it needs to relate to the gray of the cage, or I'm not sure. Another thought is the copyright claim probably could be altered, further alter that to look more like arms or sleeves, and wrap some characters so there's collars or whatever, kind of mask it a little bit more. And then to Anthony's point, something in the background, or a couple of you, right, and Bay as well. It doesn't need to be a whole thing. So my other thought is, well, does this thing have a body? What could the body be? And maybe we don't see the full thing, but maybe like a silhouette almost. And then through that notion of a silhouette, you could embed other content that's relating to. So I just wanted to at least give you my thought on the readability, like the way I'm reading it. And yeah, I think it's in the right direction though so far. So that's good.
Yeah, more to add for sure.
Okay, let's go with Dan.
Okay, so my topic is about like government surveillance, and I'm using references from the book 1984 and also the Apple commercial made about that book. I'm not sure if everyone's seen that or not, but that's what it's referencing, because like the eyes are supposed to be Big Brother from that. And then there's the hammer here, the hammer in the middle breaking that. And that's supposed to be showing like the resistance like against the government watching.
For a second there, I thought that was the shape of an app. No, apps are shaped on the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not been in your group, I wouldn't have guessed that it was a television.
Yeah.
You may want to put, if you were going for an older look, you can probably put some of the knobs and dials somewhere on the side, if possible, to make that more apparent.
Okay.
I like the wording in the middle. It could be the screen is like smaller since I'm watching it like from another screen, but the word, I think it's happiness. It's just visually really hard to read from my perspective.
Yeah, that's definitely something I was having issues with, is trying to make this out of words, but also still have it be like legible.
think you can put a line, then put the text on that line so that you don't have to turn your head to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Or a pipe, like a wooden handle, and then manipulate your type to fit into that handle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different background color. I mean, I guess to that extent, you could also do that with the top of the hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And skew the letters or overlap them, or bend them, whatever could get it to be more texture like. So it's a little, then maybe it would be read as like an object first of a hammer, and then we read what it is representing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about, it says, I am still watching, and there's eyes in the background and of the TV, and then the background behind the TV, it says, I was always watching. What do you guys think about that?
I think it ways that even in today's times, people are still being monitored with the use of technology, I guess.
Getting creeped out by the eyes staring into my very soul, but that's supposed to be the point.
I think I am still watching, and the words behind it helps build suspense, because some people tend to think, oh no, nothing's being tracked or monitored, and then like having that in the background that I was always still watching kind of like makes it more intense.
So is there anything here that you guys can see that that is talking about Big Brother? He's also kind of referencing George Orwell's book, but I don't necessarily see that here. That's why I'm kind of getting, well, I just want to see what other people think about,
Okay.
just because we have eyes in the background, and then we have I'm still watching and I was always watching, like 3 references to watching, but and I know that the cracked screen is evident and it's representing something, but I'm just towards his theme. Does anybody else have any thoughts of how he might utilize space differently, or any other kinds of things too, like use of type? It's all very similar, type.
I think the eyes are a little bit too small. They're noticeable, but everything else draws my attention a lot more than the eyes do. And I don't know if that was immediately intentional, but you could also have the eyes be a little bit bigger and maybe do something with them to make them more impactful. I don't know what exactly that could be. You could put text into the eyes, or figure out a way to have it be more of a reference to a Big Brother figure, rather than just having text saying that someone is watching.
Okay. Got to keep on moving here.
So I kind of utilized the advice from the last time we looked at the project, and I'm taking the text that's from the phone and I kind of did like a 3D theme with like a blue and a red color, just to kind of cover the male figure. And then I kind of originally I was gonna, oh, and I also like fixed his neck so that it's actually looking at the phone this time. And I was gonna have the girl up in the corner where the sun is. I just put that in just to add something until I figure out what to do. But then I was like, you know what, maybe she should be on the screen to kind of show that there's like this two-dimensional version of a conversation where like you're talking to someone through a phone and then you're talking to someone in real life. So I guess my theme is really just talking about social media and how it affects our communication as human beings. And I think it's political in the sense that social media is used for everything under the sun, and technology is, but it can also be interpreted in many different ways, especially when it comes to social environments. So that's kind of what I want to get across with this project.
When I first look at like the phone over her face, it immediately makes me think of FaceTime, and how people would sometimes rather talk to people over FaceTime than actually meet up in person. So that's just kind of where my mind went immediately, which sounds like it's what you're trying to do. So I think that's good.
I honestly didn't even think of that, but that makes a lot more sense than what I was interpreting it as. Because I was like, wait, he's talking to her, but he's not. Yeah, it makes more sense to do like a FaceTime situation and talking about, not even saying exactly whether it's good or bad to talk over the phone, like in terms of just how enthralled we are with technology, but really just kind of questioning it in general.
Something that I got from it was I noticed like how he's looking at her, but he's also kind of like looking in the direction of the phone. So it made me think that, okay, maybe his attention is elsewhere, and that sometimes like we tend to indulge more in like Bia said, FaceTime and whatnot rather than having in-person conversations. So I think that that's a good idea. The phone overlaying on her face is a good idea.
Thank you.
The one thing you're talking about in your proposal is the linking to like depression, anxiety. I think that's a pretty powerful aspect to have, but I don't know. I don't think I see it here.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up because I kind of started editing and I'm like, wait a second, I'm not even putting in what I had in my original proposal. So yeah, there's a study that directly links the overuse of technology with mental illness such as depression and anxiety. So kind of just thinking out loud, I'm kind of thinking like maybe I could replace the sun and find a way to implement like the quote, because I have a quote from that study like that says like, the majority of people have depression from blah, 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 blah. Maybe I could find a way to implement more text like in the picture that says that.
There is an app from iOS and Android. I think it's called Replica. So when I see the words "my phone is my friend," I think of that little chat bot that you can just talk to on your phone all day, and that gets to know you.
Yeah, really weird fact. I found this quote. Carrie Underwood actually said this quote. So just like, okay, sounds good. And I just copied and pasted it all across the picture.
But yeah, you can probably incorporate some of the imagery from that app. Although I think the logo's an egg, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out for you.
It's an idea.
The one, it's interesting you mentioned everything under the sun. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that is a saying. Because when I look at this, I'm thinking like, oh, light is shining, the sun is shining light onto something. You have these rays coming down, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about depression, anxiety, if we're using the sun, I'm almost thinking well, is like technology blocking the sun, or is it, you know, in some way, or is it shining light onto a problem about the phone? Like that, I guess that's kind of where my thoughts go to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm definitely wondering if I should keep it there and then try to do some text around it, because I do want to put the study in there. But I'm just gonna play around with it for sure. I think I kind of like the sun though, kind of at least shining on the subject and highlighting what's going on.
I just noticed as you were talking about the sun, the rim lighting behind both of the characters, and how there's some rim lighting behind her face, but only on the part of it that's behind the screen. And I didn't notice that before, but I really like that. How, if you're talking about depression, anxiety, and its relation to all the digital media and everything, then being like, well, the only place the sun shines on me is through my damn screen is a good point to make. And I feel like that would be something that would be good to kind of lean into more.
Thank you. Yeah, I originally just did it just so that, because she's just like, I reduced the opacity and it just looks really boring. So I just did that as a highlight, but maybe I could try to make it more symbolic.
Mm-hmm. And how he's covered in the text and the rim light is behind all of him makes it seem like, well, he's more subsumed into everything digital than she is, and she's got the, so I think it works well.
And I think to upplay that, some kind of theory theme, you could add a gradient to the sun so that there's a couple different tones in there, and then like, you know, from inward out, and then you could almost cast those colors onto the I don't know, just right now, like I'm almost thinking that the silhouette of this guy, he has a background of black. I'm almost thinking like you would want that same background color on her face on the inside of the phone, almost like some kind of connection to each other through this device, but not entirely outside. And then, yeah, if the sun is casting light onto that notion, then maybe it would be, I don't know, some kind of color playing into the sun. I don't know. But use of color, I think, can really help out here.
No, yeah, it's a really good point.
Okay, let's keep it going. This. It's the whole thing, right? Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. My idea is similar to Daniel's idea about government surveillance through our devices. In this case, our cell phones, which we carry around on a daily basis. And I went and I tried to like emphasize that we're being watched, like through, I think, the colors, more towards the emphasis of it through the use of colors, like the black being like neutral, and then we have the red that pops out from the black, and then the yellow rings, which represents the phone, also gives off the like hypnotic nature that we're being watched. Yeah.
I feel like something that you could do to get a point better show like the phone in it is to extend like the length of your image so the lines complete like all the way down.
Right.
And then also maybe like add some stuff to the phone to make it more recognizable.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it does feel like I'm falling or being pulled in against my will. Trying to figure out what's the term for it. The word escapes me, but if you remember this, that Spy Kids movie when they're like put in a game, I'm getting something from that in here. Oh, I think my screen just messed up. There's a whole bunch of white on it.
So how do you guys read these words in this image towards, like, if we read it kind of out loud through the visuals as well, how do we read the image? Like without looking at the statement.
I'm going to need to repeat that question for me one more time. I got distracted by some glitch.
Oh yeah. And then I'm just gonna go grab my water. How do you guys read this image in terms of the words, right? We can read the words and the construct, the setup of the rest of the visuals. How do you guys read that? And what do you guys think is going on here without having the statement to back it up?
It's unavoidable. That's one thing.
Didn't sound too productive in here. Let's continue.
No, for a second then when you left, I thought you just wanted us that question to marinate. So when no one replied to me, I just like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll just wait till you come back.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just trying to be as productive with time as we can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We only have 10 in here. I thought I just didn't scroll down the whole way. Am I missing something, or? Well, we have 12 people in here. Just the other 2 people, do you have an image to put up?
I did not as of yet. I've been working on it, the one that I started, and I kind of painted myself into a corner. So I'm trying to just figure out where to go from here, and I don't really have something that's in a state that is ready to really crit to.
Mine hasn't been critiqued yet.
Oh, I went over. Okay, yeah.
The thing is, I forgot to put my name on it, so I just quickly went back to the drive and put my name on.
Sure. Yeah, and I think there's still one other person that didn't have an image here. Who
Yeah, I sent you an email about it.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I just want to make sure we have everything that we can possibly get through today. And I've been timing this out in an assumption that most every single crit ends up being like almost over. So and a few people didn't show up. So, well, okay. Take it away. Oh, can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. My bad. So basically, I kind of changed my proposal around. So I smallened the scale from society to civilization to society. And what I saw here was like how like there's a chain of events that leads to like our society, like typically, falling over, or like in a form of saying, oh, it's in shambles, chaos, and like it's not organized. And also how the media is like one of the big portrayers that help lead, like that increase the, how am I going to put it this way? So that help fuel the chain of events to cause this collapse. So like from here, I will show like it's the pandemic, which is referring to currently what's happening right now. Our society isn't like, really organized in the moment. And it's like pretty messed up, messy right now. And as the chains, literally these are the events that happen, which is the politics, the big one, stating that, oh, like how our policies or like the government isn't really doing anything to help out like what's going to happen, which leads to like a bunch of misleading information, to ignorance, where people like just don't follow the protocol that's been put out, and people are just, oh, it's just like a conspiracy, and internal issues where like already like things spark up from like the tension that caused up. Like one big example would be like the Floyd and the riots. And no, that leads to mass panic because like so far the COVID that just hits its third wave, which it shouldn't really be something that's to be, going on right now. And later this pandemic is the one that's like, knocking society over, because at the end of everything, it's what's really causing the damage. And yeah, that's basically it.
I like how it's set up almost like a movie set. I think that's a really creative idea for the type of message you're trying to get out.
Thank you. It took a while to think about it. I was like lost for most of the parts.
But all that cameras pointed towards the spear in the middle kind of makes you wonder what it is they're actually trying to avoid. You see those images all the time, but oh, they're putting their cameras and attention toward this one object, but there's an elephant in the room.
Kind of wondering, is there a reason that there's no color in it except for the word pandemic? Yeah, that's just a question.
Oh, it's just to give it like a grim feeling. Like the reason why pandemic is so highlighted is like, oh, that's gonna be the main focus. Like, yeah, like, sorry, my bad. But yeah, it's like that's supposed to be the main focus or like the big highlight of what everyone needs to like look at. And then like everything else is just, oh, what leads up to the event, or like what's, currently what's happening. Like, and about adding more color, I was up doing like, to go with the movie set of like adding a green screen in the background, but like that might just take away from like the whole emphasis on the pandemic coloring part.
Yeah, I think it's working in with the camera crew, focusing on the central area here. I don't know if you need all of the lights to be activated, but if you cast some kind of light in that direction onto the sphere, that could help. Also, the background behind the sphere could be like a gradient from the inside out, maybe, so that it's like highlighting the center point. And it then makes sense that some kind of form you're highlighting the pandemic with the lighting, right? But then I don't quite get why we have the text at the top or the text at the bottom. I don't know how to read them.
Oh, what I originally tried to do was like, make a wrecking ball, right? And like, those are just the chains, and like latch onto the ball as a knockover. But like it's so hard to put it in like a view where like, you know, to see that thing stretching from the back out. That's kind of the problem I'm working on at the moment. We're like thinking how should I like, you know, move on from that point.
Well, so if it's a wrecking ball, like, is it just sitting still?
The thing is, though, I don't know how to incorporate movement in Illustrator.
I mean, just repetition. Repetition and transparency could work. So it looks like you have a motion blur almost, right?
Oh, I could do that, yeah.
Yeah. And if that's the case, I don't know if you need to have the camera crew on both sides. Maybe it's swinging into something. Maybe it's swinging and hitting society itself rather than society at the bottom. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this? Give an extra minute here.
Beyond just trying to put emphasis on the pandemic, the whole thing kind of reminds me of the early cinema, black and white, over dramatic. Not sure if that was what you were going for, but it works.
I think the idea of adding movement to the wrecking ball would help show like how this pandemic and like everything with politics and misleading information is having an effect on society. I think that would help kind of bring it together. Overall, though, I like the color, how you chose the color of using like gray, like basic colors.
Thank you.
And maybe like changing the color of the pandemic to like red, to like promote like a sense of like urgency of the pandemic and everything going on with it. Because when I see yellow, I see it as more of a calmer color and a calmer tone. But typically, like when one sees red, it's like, okay, this is urgent. This is like important. But other than that, I like the idea of having the camera crew there as helping put your message together.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's almost kind of two disparate things, like the camera crew and the wrecking ball. But I guess it can work. My thought is, at the top, maybe you could just make a bigger chain, like that would be sizable to the size of the ball. Because generally you don't have that big of a ball with that small of a chain. You know, the size would be different. And maybe just make the chain with just politics. I don't think like all of the other stuff is kind of surrounding the political factor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having the ball move, right, and you have the chain that's holding this ball, and the chain moves, maybe the chain is built out. Say you build a chain, and it looks like a chain, and then maybe overlay politics on it, right? And then if there's a quote unquote motion blur with the chain, you know, say like there's two previous trails of frames for that chain, right? Maybe those lines of the chain could be like a grayed out word itself, such as the supplemental content, right? Like misleading information or whatever. You see what I mean? Like, I think you could it could be cleaned up, but still say the same thing. And yeah, I think if the ball is maybe like hitting the word society, like it's going into like hitting, I don't know, or another word or something like that, then we can read the image, like read it as your statement is kind of focusing on.
I kind of messed up on the part where it's supposed to hit society, because the thing is, it doesn't have like a depth position to show that it's actually being knocked over. So I could work on the shading where, like, because I tried doing something to perspective scaling by, like, shrinking the bottom to look like it's gonna fall over, but I don't think I did a good job on that part either.
It's supposed to be doing what?
Like the society is supposed to be like, showing the sign that it's in mid-fall. It's just getting hit, but like I don't think I did a good job on that part.
So society's falling?
Yeah, it's supposed to look like it's like, tipping over.
So did the wrecking ball hit it and that's why it's tipping over?
Yep. But like,
okay.
I didn't do such a good job on showing that, so I can understand why. Like, it doesn't look too good.
Yeah, I think it might almost be easier to kind of, so say if the ball was coming from the left, it's swinging towards the right, like maybe have society vertically or, something, and it already has hit into society, so the letters are pushed out. You know what I mean? Like where the ball hit it, the letters are pushed out. Maybe a couple of them are turned based on the sphere of the ball, right? I think that would be more like the what do you want to call it? The more like cliche, instantaneous acknowledgement of a wrecking ball, like breaking something, rather than just tipping something. So anyhow. Okay. I think we only have 2 left, right? So Matthews, there's 2 of them here. And this is the 17th. This was today.
Yeah. So for mine, I was trying to the theme for mine was about, I was trying to show how people usually balance around the time, or how they try to put in a balance of the time with the daily events between like leisure and between work and leisure. So I have so I wanted to basically incorporate the idea of using both a scale and a clock for my work, because I remember beforehand I couldn't find something to do with the background. So I wanted to play around with the idea of time, or like with a wall clock. So if you look at the scaling, it also reminds you of the hands on a clock with the two sides of the scale, and also the a scale. So I wanted to play around with that. So basically, mine in essence was just coming down to the balance of measuring, in using 2 units of measurement in both measuring time and also measuring weight with the text.
Kind of observations you guys have? Can you guys read this?
I'm struggling to read it, but that's because my eyesight is poor.
So what could one suggestion be then from that alone?
Right-hand side a little bigger.
The space in between the words, perhaps.
And another thing you could incorporate is like maybe you could incorporate more text to show like the lines around the clock. And on one side of the clock, you could have like different duties and responsibilities on the left hand side coming out as like the lines that are usually like on a clock, and then on the other side, the other half of the clock, you can incorporate text to like mimic lines as to all the leisure activities that you want to put down. But other than that,
So, Greasy, can you tell me again? I missed it, I guess. What the clock is representing?
So what I want to the clock was basically represents the time we all basically have. I was trying to I remember you told me that sometimes it's better to let the idea talk for itself. So I wanted to display the idea of that, oh, everything is balanced and measured in some way, form, or shape. So that's why I wanted to play. I was started playing around with the idea of a clock and a scale. These are two things we use to measure things, one for weight and one for time. So I wanted to show like how much weight the things we do in our lives affect us, and also the amount of time we have in our lives to do them.
Yeah, I think I think the element of weight kind of disappears in this because time is inevitably moving, right? Like these hands are just going to keep, because it looks like you have a black hour hand and a black minute hand, but then also these white ones, and then it almost looks like the person's head is on like, so the white ones almost look like hour, minute, and second hands or something. And that's how it reads to me. And if that's the case, inevitably, the side with the red phone and text, that's going to ultimately be above the responsibilities at some point, just based on if those are going to keep moving around the clock, like they're ultimately going to. So I don't think that I think you lose a sense of weight with them. I understand, I guess, that you want to bring the notion of time to these points. But I don't think, I don't know. I want to see what you guys think. I don't know if I'm sold on the current integration of the clock. I guess I'm being, it seems like it's convoluting what's trying to be said.
The clock can probably be used to complete the head shape. Like time always in the back of your mind. Because there's gonna come a point where you have to, put your responsibilities over the things you actually want to do, because there'll be procrastination and things will run out. You won't do well.
Also, another thing is like for the right side hand clock, instead of like using words, I think it might be way better if you use logos, because like logos are either both recognizable and it's much more clear to see like a clump of words. It's just my opinion on the thought.
And so the other thing too is like, if we're keeping the sense of a weight and one side's being weighed down more than the other, how do we get a sense that things are off? Like maybe some people really enjoy being on their phones and they don't need to be responsible. And they don't have kids. They do their job, they make an income, and that's it. So what here is saying that something needs to change? Like why are we looking at this? So like if we have this scale and we have these things here, what could be a way to illustrate that, you know, this person is struggling or, you know, losing time or towards what?
Rather than that, I think it might be. I sorry, that's not what I meant to say. To build off of what Bernard said, I think it might be also better if, like, instead of like having that much words, you could boil it down to 2 words with big meaning. Like, from my perspective, it seems like one of them, like the heavier side, could be procrastination, while the one that's like lighter should be like actual work done. And you could, like, instead of like words inside the scales, you could put like a bunch of clocks or like a bunch of clocks inside the scale, and like put more time into procrastination than what you do for working. That might also like drive like your agenda a little better.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's actually, I like that one. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the one main thing that I would change is not having the center of that scale meet up at the center of the clock. Because right now they're reading as one and the same, and I think that's where a lot of my confusion starts with. So what do you really want to say here about this? You may have mentioned it at the start, but
What I was trying to say was just talking about how balance is important in people's lives.
Balance.
Yeah, because I was thinking in the scale where like life basically is measured in time, and like our responsibilities usually every day. People constantly balance out what they're doing. Like we always make a choice if we're doing homework or we're not doing homework, or like if we're going to if like we always make a choice between like work and leisure. That's one of the biggest things we usually do, especially in college or even when you have a working job. That's usually the two.
So what here is showing a choice versus a duty or responsibility? You know, if you have a duty or responsibility, generally you more or less have to do it. There's not much choice in that factor. Like you have a job, right? You're pretty much obligated to do that job. So yeah, we have time, but like what about it? What are you really trying to say? Like, are you trying to say that we need to use our time wisely? Like what's the kicker here?
I think it would be the to time management and using time wisely. That's definitely the bottom line.
Okay, so yeah, I think there's got to be something here to say that, to like present that time is meaningful and we need to use our time wisely, or we need to calculate, our time differently, or some way of representing that we need to, besides there being red text on the right that's dropping that down. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, right? So like if you're trying to say that we shouldn't be spending so much time on our phone and we should be taking care of our responsibilities in relation to time, how are you insinuating that visually, right? I think so you're missing something. I think one of my suggestions last time was that you could have some kind of words like pushing on one side of the scale or pulling on the other, pulling and pushing on the scale. And those words could reinforce like that supplemental, like, why are we looking at this kind of thing? So, yeah. And Umaya is last.
Okay. So for the overall theme of my project, it was basically to show how with voting this year, there will be balances on both sides, whether you're mailing in your vote or you're going in person because of COVID this year and like social distancing. And basically with this image, I wanted to show how like this year's election is gonna be maybe very different depending on what happens as far as how people can vote, um, and how that may affect the election.
I like how almost complicated your picture is because I think it really alludes to the point of just how complicated I think the whole topic has become in the current news cycle. So I really like how you like have two people and they're facing each other, so it looks like they're on opposing sides because I feel like that's like very symbolic of how a lot of conversations happen in our country. So I think it's really good.
Thank you.
I see everything that you're trying to say, and then the two people facing each other are kind of anxiety induced things like, oh, what about social distancing? It's just the constant bickering. It's kind of annoying in a news cycle. My question is, text as image. I know this isn't done yet, but that's something you may have to think about.
So maybe there is something I eventually want to. There are a few other components I want to add. So I'm thinking of incorporating maybe like a trash can of like ballots that were filed incorrectly. Because I remember like watching something on the news briefly, and it was talking about how if it's not in this slip and if it's not enclosed this way, it won't be counted. So as far as the side about like social distancing with the woman, um, maybe in some form I'll try to incorporate text by trying to symbolize a trash can and symbolize how one little mistake could, have a huge impact and effect.
I want to run through some rapid fire questions for you guys, and let's just kind of see if you guys can answer these quick here. How do you traditionally see, like we have red and blue here. How do you traditionally see these colors and associated to like politics?
The parties,
Parties. What does the red represent?
the Republican, and the blue will be the Democrat.
Okay, so has the Republican being saying, what about social distancing and being concerned about the virus? And the blue, the Democrats have been saying, get out and vote?
Yeah, I think they're the opposite way around.
Almost the opposite, right? At least the social distancing concerns would be Democratic primarily. Republican seemed general consensus, at least across social media and news outlets. The way it has seemed is that most people in the Republican vote are not as concerned with science and the overwhelming concerns about the virus. So automatically, I have like the sense that how do you see these repetitions happening? How do you guys see these happening? are they exactly like each of the words, are they exactly the same scale and placement? Rapid fire.
They're off by a little.
Are
Almost as if they're trying to be louder and louder.
Right. So they're kind of like growing, reaching out. And generally, just because like we have these microphones at the bottom, we would almost assume that each of these sides is speaking, right? The left
Yes.
and right. So kind of like Democrat on one, Republican on the other. And it almost looks like the silhouettes are almost relating that as well. However, then we have a voting box on the left, which is contradicting what about social distancing. And then I guess what I'm kind of getting at is the left and the right sides don't seem to pull together to that to me. Like almost like we should have a voting box in the middle or something. And if you're making it about the two sides and the overwhelming like stress and issues revolving around the pandemic. And I don't necessarily think that you need to have like a picture of, like a raster image of a voting box. I think it could be any kind of like, because you're using these other silhouettes, like graphic silhouettes. I think like matching that theme could be a simple way to present that.
Okay. And you were saying like switching the like colors as far as like
so if we're being really minimal right here, right, we have very minimal information on the screen, and it very overwhelmingly is like each side highlighted with those colors, right? It's kind of like most everyone knows that. So using that to your advantage here in speaking would be beneficial. And and then maybe it's reorganizing the placement of these things. So if the words are starting at the top and reaching outward from the bottom, then maybe the people with the microphones need to be in the top corners, right? Kind of saying stuff to the other side. I'm not. Yeah, I think there's just a little bit more of those things, like voting center, Albany Parkway. I don't know if you need that. Like, it's really saying like, it's almost saying the same thing as the ballot box. It's like, here it is. This is the voting. It's right here. And I think where your project really shines will be in this overarching dialogue between should you, could you, will you, why not, and the back and forth here, right? Okay. And I think the really basic component of this is confusion and kind of like anxiety. And so I think that's really what you want to be focusing on, is that confusion, anxiety, frustration, and yeah. And I don't know if it's important. The one thing I will say is I do see, like, if you have these two people at the top corners, they're saying this, it's the same thing being repeated. That's technically one voice. Is it important to have multiple voices? If they are multiple voices, how are you representing those words being spoken? Maybe they're different typefaces and sizes and in the words that are moving. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that you could do a lot through that specifically.
Okay. Like more subtle, like differences.
I mean, I would start at least organizing it that way.
Okay.
Not that it has to be subtle, simplistic at the end. I'm just thinking you want to make sure you step back and see how things are structured, so that when you read through it, it's clicking towards what's going on. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the one last thing I will say to everybody, because we are done with class. The one thing that is kind of nice to think about for these is seeing the overarching image for what it is at a snapshot, like a glimpse, and then having supplemental text. So you don't necessarily want to have this like big, huge word plastered and then not a whole lot of supplementing image content. Because I guess the overwhelming idea or concept with posters being political is you want to draw people in and then keep them there and kind of speak your mind or have them divulge this other information, right? So I guess it's like all these different things we're thinking about, like politics, technology, text is image. And then I guess lastly would be like, what's the overarching thing? You could see it, and then what's your supplemental content? And as you go through it, you kind of you can kind of break it down and reorganize. And I think we're kind of at that point where everybody's got a general nice outline. So that's why I bring it up again now, is starting to think about like, well, oh yeah, how do I add this supplemental stuff? So cool. Yeah, like I said, next class is our last work day in class. Make sure you get on Facebook today, sooner than later. Throw your image up and check out the comments I've posted, and then be prepped for Wednesday. You know, maybe put a couple minutes in, make sure you have questions for Wednesday, okay? Cool.
Do you have a minute to stick around and talk after class?
Right now, yep. Everybody else
All
is
right,
good to go.
I appreciate it.
What's up?
So the project I've been working on, I know I've been kind of like in the background, and then I missed last week because of craziness, and I probably should have emailed you, but the project that I was working on up until now kind of just ended up being like sprawling out into a sort of disaster and not really being something that I can salvage or make anything workable out of without like putting in weeks of work. So I kind of have been like back to the drawing board a bit today and kind of working on some like ideas to simplify things, but then make it easier to follow the prompts.
Usually in my experience, usually it's like that perspective is overblown almost. Kind of coming from, you thought you had an interest in it and all of a sudden you lost interest in it, rather than potentially being successful in it. A lot of times it just takes like a couple outside perspectives to tweak how things are working, and then could be salvageable.
It's partially that, and then partially that like the kind of the aspect of it, the, you know, having the political technological aspect of it, and then the images type constraints. The idea that I originally had like kind of doesn't really work super well within those, and it's like almost an uphill battle.
Okay, so I mean, where do you want to go from here then?
Well, I basically kind of figured out another theme to go for that I'm basically gonna see if I could start from square one basically and get something there. And I understand that the Facebook thing tonight is kind of a deadline that I would probably miss. I could probably make it by tonight if I just do a bunch of work throughout the day and get it there. Either way, I'll get on and I'll comment on that on other people's. But I don't know. I kind of just wanted to run it by you.
Even if you don't get this new concept done, you could throw up an image from your old one.
Mm-hmm.
Get any kind of back. It's I don't know. So trying to just obligate to the requirements, I guess.
Yeah. I kind of just wanted to like update you and keep you in the loop and see what you had to say about it, and not just kind of keep flying around and doing my own thing.
The only thing that I can say then is if you're firmly committing to it, then you just have to go through that. I would go through that process just like the first time, typing out your proposal, making sure you have the main components there, have a preliminary sketch or two, and then come to Wednesday with your leading layout, starting to work on it, and then then I can sit down and help you kind of start to build it in,
Yeah, and then I'll come by office hours too. The main thing is I'm not trying to ask for an extension or anything because I get that this is all on me. So I'll make it happen by the deadline. I just kind of wanted to talk to you about it.
Yeah, totally. If you're able to come for office hours, I would advise that.
Yeah.
Earlier in those office hours than later.
Because
sometimes a few people jump on like a half hour at the end.
Yeah.
But, okay. Yeah. Just keep me posted.
Cool. I will. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yep. Hey dudes, I'll be back in a moment. Just gonna grab a quick snack and check on the wild and crazy puppies in the backyard. Make sure you have your project in here. This is weird. Can't select it. Anywho, files. Okay. Well, I'll be back. Okay. Let's get some webcams on. And how many people do we have here? Hey, we got most everybody. That's what I'd like to see. Last class, we're missing a bunch of people. Um, 11. So we have about 5 people in the class that don't have their image up. I would get whatever you have currently on there so we can have some feedback for you. I checked in with most people, I think, through this last week. So most everyone should have something. So just get that current state up there. So yeah, dudes, once most people get their cameras going, we can get started. And let's see. Maybe I'll do a quick recap of the project info here. So I guess main components today are wanting to make sure that we stay focused on the prize here, which is the requirements, and starting with those first and then proceeding forward. So obviously some element of politics and technology, and just having them on the page doesn't necessarily mean that you've successfully integrated them. We then go into use of type and type as image to supplement those main 2 points. And how I described it well to another student was they should basically come full circle. We should be able to read through the points to fully kind of comprehend that full circle, that full logic, without necessarily having to read the statement, right? And since we literally are able to use words on the page, should have an okay time getting to that point. But that's what today's for, is to really step back, help each other analyze. Do we have these main pieces? Are they coming together well? And if not, then, you know, revisiting some of these kind of questions that you had for the proposal could be helpful. So then, you know, if that stuff's evident, it's working through, then we can start focusing on other things like use of color, I don't know, specific details, you know, working through more minor things. So anybody have any questions or? Okay, so yeah, we still have Alan, Nick, Michael, and Brett. You guys could throw webcams on. We could have a much more lively conversation here. And we'll get started. So we'll just kind of go down through the list, looks like. Luck of the draw here. And let me actually real quick, I'm just going to assume that everybody in class is going to have something so we don't go overtime. And okay. So we'll kind of cap it off at about 5 minutes total, like on to the next person. So give us roughly like a 30, 40-second overview. We'll have like 4 minutes for you guys to try not ask questions, really just kind of focus on these points that we discussed. And then I'll try to chime in or focus you guys if need be. But other than that, I want to let you guys give most feedback as we can.
All right, so my project is about Banned Books Week. So the politics behind it is many individuals and governments and groups and whatnot have decided to ban books and restrict them and censor them so that people are for topics like sexuality and race, which is what I'm kind of showing off here. So I'm doing this kind of in the style of like a big poster that you might see in a library for Banned Books Week. So the main text is read about yourself. It's going to be someone reading a book in the library, surrounded by these bookshelves. And the books right there are placeholders. I'm going to make them not just like a cut and paste pattern. They're going to have some of them are going to be made out of words, like that one you see in the top right or of the left bookshelf that says sexuality. And I'm trying to stylize the text so it makes it look more like a rectangle, like a block, but it doesn't look exactly how I want it to yet. So yeah, there's going to be stacks of books and stuff, and so books is obviously the technology.
One thing I would say, especially if you're trying to go for like the banned book sort of vibe, definitely put some of like the banned book titles on there as well.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like that doesn't really jump out at me right at first, but I see some of those titles, I can be like, what is the relation? Oh, it's that. So like putting more of the direct implication of what you're trying to go on those books, I think that would help.
Yep, that is on my list. I want to make it so that it like at a distance, it's like, oh, it's a nice picture of like, you know, a thing, but you also get value from looking in and actually learning something about, oh, these are actual banned books.
I agree with Eric. I think that kind of letting the reader know that these are banned books as opposed to the person like sitting in a library. Because I mean, obviously I know you're not finished yet, but I mean, like, you know, maybe like one of the shelves could probably have like caution tape or something on there. I mean, that's probably a little bit extreme, but like, you know, just something that indicates, because I'm not really like, not that I didn't know books were banned places, but like, I didn't know, like, I don't know like titles. So to like someone who's like unfamiliar, that's, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I haven't thought about the caution tape, but I have thought about other ways to show that they're, you know, they've been restricted. I'm also thinking of putting like a little thing in the bottom right that just says Banned Books Week, so that even if you have no idea what's going on, there is text that tells you what it is. So thank you.
Yeah, like she mentioned about caution tape or something. I think they used to like burn books like that were supposed to be banned. Maybe something could be on fire, or like something like that, to indicate that they're like bad books, like, or they aren't supposed to be read, something like that.
Yeah, I tried to do something with like burning books, but like at the same time, it's like this is a snapshot of the present where books aren't really restricted anymore. So it's hard to show like, oh, this book is like was burned, but like it's burning right now. So it's like it's hard to like try and show that it was.
Thought bubbles.
Thought bubbles.
I don't know. It's got that cartoony vibe, you know. So that could be a thing of like thinking, you know. A thought bubble with grayscale content.
Yeah, I also don't know exactly what to do with the head because I was planning on like making facial features out of words, but I don't think that's gonna work out. So
Well, it looks like you have the tendency right here to be very pictorial, and maybe somebody might have a suggestion to lean away from that somehow, or utilize some kind of type to maybe bolster the type as image.
Personally, I really like the quote unquote cartoony vibe of it. Like, not to like sound like I'm like refuting anybody's like claims, but I like the way it looks in terms of like what you have so far. I think that, well, because you aren't finished, you're just gonna have to figure out how to include that text element in it, which is like not, it's gonna be difficult and also easy at the same time because they're books. So it's just like finding out where to put it like in a smart way and then like where to put it, like sneak it in here and there. So I personally, I think it's really cool.
thank you.
So, in this circumstance, is this character supposed to be like ourself, like everybody looking at it?
Um, I guess I mean, you're supposed to be able to relate to them. I was actually going to have them have like rainbow hair. I know it's kind of ostentatious, but I'm really aiming for the like the LGBTQ and the people of color audience here. So like I'm hoping anyway that some people can look at this and be like, oh, I should like that could be me. I should like read about this. But even just from like a like somebody else point of view, it's like, oh, this person is reading about themselves. I don't know.
Right. So I guess if it's supposed to be kind of like embracing LGBTQ from that, like within that community, then we can assume that whoever would be looking at this, it would like the image is designed for the person in the middle to be a representation of themselves.
It's a little confusing, but yes.
Yeah. So my one thought was like, well, what if this character, instead of a character like visually, built out with a picture, what if it's just like the letter I? It could be, doesn't have to be an uppercase I, it could be a lowercase I.
Yeah, I guess that is pretty. If you do like the lowercase I, you could have like the dot as the head or whatnot. But I feel like if I do that, then it's like a little bit too abstract, and then it's like much harder to relate because it's like, oh, that's not a real person. That's just a letter.
Well, no matter how you visualize a person, it's not going to be relating to everyone.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like giving the thing actual like human characteristics lets you relate to them easier.
Hey, if you have other forms of using text as image, by all means. I'm just bringing something up in terms of like um, unifying to the theme. Um, yeah. Any last quick comments here?
Maybe like you could utilize a mirror or something somehow so that the person in the image is maybe like reading themselves, like looking at themselves, or maybe the table could be a mirror, something that like shows that they're reading about who they are and they're like seeing representation of themselves, something like that.
That is actually a really cool idea. Would be even if I just like put a mirror where the head would be, so it's like, you know, you have to imagine that it's like, oh, you printed it and it's like a reflective, but like being able to look at it and like see your own face in it, that would be pretty cool.
Okay, thanks guys. Sana.
So my concept is like surveillance and whatnot, and how basically the government watches kind of everything you do, as opposed to like a general kind of bashing the government or whatever. I wanted to just bring general awareness. I'm obviously not finished, but basically I asked a bunch of people, because I remember when like around 2016, and even before then, just politics in general, kids obviously they're under 18 and they're not allowed to vote because they're under 18. And we don't really have much direct impact on the government. It's mostly what the adults kind of, you know, do, even like people who vote. And then even people who can vote also somewhat don't have much say in what the government decides to do at the end of the day. But in general, kids have less ability to do so. So that's why around it, the smiley face, it says you're too young to understand. Like when you get older, you'll get it. Just stay in a child's place. It's not like you can vote or anything. And so when it says smile, you're on camera, because even though kids are the demographic that uses the internet the most, when I say kids, I just mean everyone under 18, even though even though they are the demographic who use the internet most often, they don't have any say in what basically their rights are. And so I wanted to, and the ECPA thing, I have to figure out a way to explain what that is. It's basically the law, or one of the laws, that allows the government to spy on us, like without our without like, it gives them the ability to spy on us, and we're not allowed to like say against it. So yeah, basically that's what it is. And then the eye with the recording, and then the bottom with love the government. So yeah, I'm open to any critiques that you may have.
So when I see "with love the government," the first thing I think of is like, this is like some sort of like card you're receiving or something like that. And like maybe even trying to play along with that and try to just like tie in ECPA with like some sort of like border around like the edge to show like, okay, like this is like what they are, and have it kind of like look decorative. But the more you look into it, the more it's like, oh, like they're like invading my privacy or something like that. I don't exactly know how you'd incorporate it, but adding some sort of border to make it seem more like greeting card like.
Thank you.
Just a small thought. Like I like the general idea of this, but just having like one color like around the edge of it, I think you could add a few more colors rather than just green. Just a small thought.
Yeah, I was like, I don't really have a background idea yet, so I was like, you know what? As of right now, I'm just gonna like make it, but it's a good idea. Thank you.
I was gonna say, if your like main target audience is like kids, kind of, you can make it look more like kid friendly. Because I like the smiley face and like the rainbow and stuff, and I think that if you did more with that, to like make it appeal more to like the kid demographic, I think that could help the message come along better too.
Yeah. What do you call it? Bernard like told me that last time, and I was like trying my best to like add in like kid elements. That's also why like I put a person in the middle. And so like from now on, I'm like trying to figure out like what can I tie in like with the kid kind of aspect of it, because it is kid friendly, like you said. Yeah.
Thank you. I think honestly, just adding more colors too would help. And maybe like, I don't know. I like the font though. I think the font does a good job for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I know you're highlighting this as a smiley face, but it's also a circle. And so if you're showing somebody sitting there on a computer, like you're looking at me on a computer, and you have a circle around you, I guess it just outlines you. But then I'm just going to hold this up because I thought of it might represent the thing better. Does this change the effect at all?
Like the perspective, you mean? Like kind of like a tunnel vision situation?
Maybe. Kind of like looking in at.
Oh. And it can also almost, oh, that kind of ties into my last project, like the camera lens almost, because it is like camera, da da da. But that's a good idea.
Yeah, kind of like if you're on camera, you're being watched. So you, the viewer, are the person watching the person on screen, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like double meaning situation.
Yeah, I mean, really just representing exactly what it is you're talking about. And to that point, then you could use the ring itself and repeat it outward. You know, you might need to play with transparency to make sure it's legible. But yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Oh, let's continue. All right, Nick.
All right, so my project, I basically did how Facebook handles their approach to our privacy and our information. And on the right is an image of Mark Zuckerberg, and he's staring at an image that's supposed to represent like your digital self. And then I did those lines coming from the digital self to like represent our information. I was supposed to put like text on those lines that says like IP address, like your data, address, yada, 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 but I didn't get to it. And they're standing in front of like a surveillance screen to emphasize that feeling of surveillance and invasion of privacy. And then on the left, I put at the top, nothing to hide, nothing to fear. So it's basically like, if you have nothing to hide, we can do whatever we can with your information and data. And then I played with the idea that you suggested of like terms and conditions and how we always agree no matter what, like, and then right now it's kind of a placeholder. I put like an excerpt from the Privacy Act, which is basically a law that just places regulations on the government and agencies on how to handle our information properly. And then at the bottom, I put like, I disagree, to show like this law isn't in effect, like on Facebook. And that's pretty much it. I also wanted to go for a sort of science fiction aesthetic, so that explains the color scheme and like the design choice. And yeah.
I like the way you manipulated like the image. I think it looks cool. And yeah, I think if you added like, I don't know, like text that represents like a person's data on those lines, I was going to say, I think that would be effective. And maybe even like on the face on the right, like, I don't know, just add like information in those lines about like a person, like their personal information, like their birthday, like stuff that's like super personal to them that represents like that's a person. I don't know, like a user of Facebook, something like that.
Yeah.
I really like the font and font color used. It definitely like really, I don't know. When I see that, it just makes me think of like computer digitalized stuff like that. And like, I don't know, just like old 90s movies if it had like spies in it or something. That's just the type of vibe I get off of it.
I'd say kind of going along with like the transferring of data from digital self to Mark Zuckerberg, having, I'd say, more arrows like pointing towards Mark, because like that's who you're saying the data is going to. At the moment for me, it just looks like nails being driven at the digital person. So having like a direct flow of where the information is going, maybe with just like a point at the end to symbolize like this is an arrow going that way sort of thing. I think that would be a little bit more clear as well.
So I don't know if this will help coax anything else out. One technical term for this translation is something I found when I was writing my thesis, involving the transmediated self. And not a whole lot of people will coin it exactly like that, but transmediation in a general form is like the transfer from one medium to another. And I don't know, I just thought maybe Googling some of that image content might give you other supplemental pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of coaxing like some more image as type will help. I think it would be kind of nice to wrap text. I think we could wrap text in this program so that these juttered pieces don't run into it, or maybe just move it over a little bit more so it's within. But also, I've had something similar to this, so it's not like it's my idea, but to have an I agree there as well, but then like you can't click on it. Or sorry, I agree is like automatically selected and then you can't click on the I disagree. Sometimes that could be illustrated through like, you know, a circle with a line through it. Like your cursor's there, but you can't click on it. Maybe a thought, because that's kind of what you're saying is like you don't really have the choice.
Yeah.
And so really representing exactly what it is you're trying to say would be, you know, more beneficial. But yeah, I think everything is working out pretty well here. So kind of just like tweaks and adding a couple things. Okay, Nathan.
Okay, so with my project, I was just trying to convey this image of how automation is becoming increasingly prominent in today's society, and like how it's kind of becoming a political issue, that like so many jobs are going to be basically obsolete because of machines, and how most companies are going to be taking the route of automation because it's the most efficient way of production and stuff like that. With my project, I kind of tried to go for a minimalist aesthetic, and I guess you guys can let me know how I did on it.
I think that this is a really cool like idea. I really like it, and I think if you found something for the machine to grapple onto, like I was like the first thought I had was like, let's say society, and then like it's like sitting there, or like, you know, another word like community, or like, you know, automation is grappling up the, you know, the world as we know it, or whatever. I don't know, just basically yeah, something that you feel like if you think about like what automation is taking away from us, that can be what it's grabbing up, because it, you know, the symbolism and whatnot. But yeah, other than that, I really like it. Yeah, the minimalist kind of thing you're going for.
That's a really cool idea. Thanks.
Yeah, I had the same idea that she did about like the first thing I think of when I see something like this is like the claw game that like maybe on the left bottom side there could just be like a pile of words that represent, like she was saying, things that it is stealing away from real people. And then I feel like for some parts of the machine, like maybe you don't need the actual image behind the text. Like maybe, like I feel like the words sometimes could just represent the shape enough that you might not need like the black behind it. So maybe like for like the arm, for example, like just the word taken can be like in between the two gears, and that would just represent the arm itself. But yeah, I like it overall.
Quick question for you guys. If you were to read all of these letters, words on the inside of the robot and in the outside, who is saying them? Is some one person saying both of these, or like who, right?
Is that a question for me or
for everybody else as of right now?
Okay.
I
Are you
feel like
asking?
I feel like the company overall is like saying these to like push their mindset more or less. Like this is the words of the people who are making the change. It's inevitable. It's going to happen anyways. So
Also, people tend to, because like people tend to adapt to it as well. So people who it doesn't affect are definitely going to be like, oh, like, you know, it's better for us. Like, especially like, you know, like look at the drones and stuff in Amazon. People like, if it gets my package here quicker, I don't care. But like the people who work in the warehouses are like, bro, my job is getting taken away. So I would think more the people who it benefits as well.
Okay, so the general consensus is that this is like from the industry that's pushing this craft, right? I guess I can see that. I originally questioned like the use of the typeface, it all being the same, seemed a little funky to me. I don't know if there's a better solution, but the point I then bring up is then what from the other side, the consumer side, what are we seeing from like the consumer perspective, alternative perspective?
Yeah, I agree. There's not really much here to represent that sort of side, which is one of the reasons why I said the idea of having like words under the claw would probably convey that meaning much better.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sold on the slogan at the top. The automation is inevitable. Not sure. It is, as it stands, it's a little weird that it's like the same font as the rest of the inside of the robot.
Okay.
I just don't know. I feel like maybe it's supposed to be over something else that's behind, that's supposed to be, I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to know exactly how to comment because we don't have like the other part of the political element. So, yeah, maybe if you can get something kind of tweaking in by next class, then we can, I can look in on it and review it a little bit more.
Okay.
Olivia.
Alrighty, so my concept is basically the use of radio in Rwanda in like a post-genocide society, and like how the government and the president, which is Paul Kagame, I think that's how you say his name, I should probably check that, but how he is presenting this idea that that the media and radio is free for the public to use, when in reality, that's not exactly the truth. So I have like his name kind of breaking the radio in half. And like this side is the truth of what goes on in their politics and how they censor they're journalists and they're public, and then this is like what they want to be perceived as, pretty much. And I looked up like more stuff about radio waves and like how they radiate from an antenna, and so that's what like this is supposed to represent. So yeah.
One suggestion that I can make is that have the truth and the what the government wants to say blur into each other, so then it looks like the truth is being like transformed into this fake like propaganda for the government instead of it being just a clear divide.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think the only thing I would say is just to make it more obvious, like what the truth is versus like what they want them to think. Like just make it more obvious which is which.
Okay.
It's like a very specific. I think it's really cool, but it's like a very specific topic. So like I don't know anything about it. So I think just
Right.
making it obvious for everyone would probably be better.
Okay.
I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I thought of the idea of maybe like on the radio it says like on and off, and so the on is supposed to represent like yeah, but I don't think, maybe it's not super clear. Like I could maybe make truth and like lie, and maybe have the blue be the truth and the gray be the lie, make it more obvious that way.
Yeah, because that's a really good idea. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
And even going off of that a little bit, just maybe adding more color to the truth side, because right now it is kind of just like, okay, there's blue, there's gray.
Yeah.
So having more of that like color, more like life being present, I feel that would help also differentiate what is the truth and what's trying to be covered up.
Right. So. Okay, thank you.
And even kind of going off of what both Eric and Melissa said, like utilizing color to represent things, because you know, I guess green is more when someone's like, it's things are usually in green, it's kind of just like go or correct, and then red is usually representative of like false. I mean, you probably have a color scheme going, so I'm not gonna like encroach upon that, but like, you know, like try to work with like colors that kind of have meaning, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like colors that have a more like direct meaning to them. Yeah.
I have a small thought. Like I'm looking at the words on the top, and like I think besides just having like the one graphic of like the radio kind of split in half, maybe you could have like multiple graphics to kind of represent some of the text on top.
Okay.
Or don't.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I know there's a lot of kind of empty space maybe I could utilize in like putting other pictures in. I could see that.
I think that the radio kind of blends in a little bit too much with the background. I know that it's like plain and you could totally rock with that, but I think a little bit of like either like separation with like maybe shading or coloring the radio a little bit, or like giving it a shadow or something might be beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I think last time he mentioned it wasn't super clear that it was a radio, so I could try to make that more obvious.
I think the one thing that could help that is just the little like vertical red line.
Right. Okay.
And then maybe just very faint other line. You know, just look at a reference image, I guess.
Yeah, like the channels and stuff. Like.
Yeah, and then maybe just adding in a couple of the lines to make it three-dimensional, because then you could also have like a volume knob on the side, or I wouldn't go crazy. I would just make sure it's just upheld a little bit. Yeah, my thought is in terms of color, I haven't fully, I think I have to sit down and think about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the blue, that's like the color of their flag, but like nobody really knows that. So maybe it's kind of useless that I'm using that color. it's possible. Yeah.
Anything is possible. I'm almost like thinking like something to do with, because it looks like this Kagame is like breaking the radio, right?
Yeah, that's what
And
I'm hoping for.
right, and then he's shooting these. It's like there's this explosion happening from him sliding in almost. So a couple other quick thoughts are, I don't know if it would help or not. I don't know. I guess color could be in there somehow. Maybe
Yeah.
a gradient that fades into the red on the right, so then these lines are red, or I don't know. You could do like a little bit of copy and paste with a gradient to show like movement. I don't know if that would help. My other thought was like, could you vertically spell a word and then you change like the color of those letters? But I was looking at it for a while and I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Besides like me, it's about him, but it's not really about me as the viewer. It's about him, but that doesn't really make sense. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Just kind of toying with like what you already have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep on trucking here.
Thank you.
Trickling. Ooh, some sensory overload.
Yeah. So mine was about sort of what the dangers of echo chambers and basically how certain not programs, platforms, social media platforms, news agencies essentially feed into this echo chamber of like false information, um, like like you know failure to fact check, biased like agendas, and how it creates this bubble that sort of just blocks out like the pros of having a expanded worldview, healthy discussion, peer reviews, progress, ideas, education, things that generally sort of just do not flourish when everybody's just hearing the things they want to hear over and over again and reaffirming their existing like worldviews.
I like how you like manipulated the word echo chamber to kind of look like a circle or some sort of like, I don't know, sphere that's keeping in ideas. I see you have like the two spheres. That's like one is social media and the other is like more direct news sources. Maybe like add a few more of those, or maybe make some that are like completely based on maybe like political party, like news outlets that are all kind of like in the same party bias kind of, because I think that tends to like be where you really see like a lot of the echo chamber stuff. Yeah.
That's fair. The echo chamber itself, or at least what it's supposed to be in, was supposed to be like a little fishbowl.
Turtles.
Yeah, those are, and then the two inside, the things that like the logos are stamped onto were supposed to be turtles, or like the shells of turtles.
I see that now.
Yeah, because I had like this weird connection where I was like, because everybody refers to like, or there's this reference to hiding in their shell in your shell whenever you don't want to hear like an outside opinion. So I figured turtles would be a good representation of that. But I could do another turtle and have them have like political parties and agendas on that.
Yeah, now that you say that that's a fishbowl, I can definitely see it. But before I didn't really know what that center image was. So maybe like having more like a ripple on the top instead of just a flat line might convey water easier to show that it is actually a fishbowl.
Maybe just filling in the bottom with like a little shade of like a little layer of blue just to have them
Yeah,
floating in
yeah,
water.
like even that might, yeah.
Crap. Did not work out in my favor. Yeah, I think the use of color back and forth play, like Liv was playing with, could help maybe.
Mhm.
Like relating different pieces from the outside to the different elements inside with that use of color. Because right now you have white on the outside, and it's kind of relating, like it's visually kind of relating to these shapes on the turtle shell that also have white on them. So, and instead of it just like instead of it being just happenstance that it's relating, maybe find a connection that where it does relate to the external pieces.
Well, if anything, the things on the outside should. I was planning to have the things on the outside not relate to the shells, because the things on the outside were supposed to be the things that does not exist within like the echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess messing around with color is definitely on the list of things to do. Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely then just not have anything from the outside and the inside then. It's just like initially when I'm looking at it visually without even reading everything, all of like the light gray or white words are connecting to these turtle shells. So it's like the initial go-to is like, oh, is this connecting? But yeah, I neglected that vital piece. Um, hmm. I don't know, because originally I'm looking at this and I see I seen this circle and I see how it's like a bubble, so that's evident. But then I was really staring at this for a while, like trying to think of like what the shape was, and then I seen these blobs inside here, but it took me a while to realize the turtles, and then I didn't even acknowledge the fishbowl until you mentioned fishbowl. So, do we need the bubble and the fishbowl? Um, if it is a fishbowl, maybe is it like, does it have a top rim that's, and then there's some kind of like front reflection and rear reflection? I'm not sure. Is it all needed? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the bubble itself kind of is working well. Okay. Anyway, let's keep continuing. Michael?
Hi. So, for my project, I wanted to focus on video game addiction. So, for my image, I wanted to show like a person sitting at a desk just playing games over the course of a whole day, which is like shown through a series of text messages where throughout the day you can like while you're reading them, you can see them neglecting their responsibilities and their friends and family members and spending like an unnecessary amount of money on these games. And I wasn't able to do it yet, but I wanted to include like text of different like colors representing like different emotions that the person like felt over the course of the day. And that was just what I was able to get through so far.
Is it okay if I ask like how you're tying the like government kind of aspect into it?
Can you repeat that again? I couldn't hear you.
Like, how are you tying in the government, like, politics kind of thing into it?
Oh, because with video games, the only thing that the media really talks about in general about video games is how like violent video games makes people violent, but that's not a proven thing. Like there's no studies saying that that's true. However, there's a lot of studies that show that certain like playing too much video games do have like negative consequences as well, and they don't talk about any of that stuff at all, so there's not really a lot of information for anyone about that. And addiction is like a very serious topic, and there's a lot of information and like resources for different types of addiction that are more prevalent.
I really like that aspect of it. And I think if you found a way to incorporate that into it, then I think it would bring it to like another level.
Thank you.
Do you guys think it's clear that the characters playing video games?
I would say no.
So what would be a suggestion to amplify that effect?
Maybe make the background like a screen and have it be like a reflection of like a person like with the screen, and then have like the text maybe like around the screen itself.
Or even like the setup it is right now, right? We have what's seeming like a desk, character behind a monitor, and I'm not really sure what the tan is. I don't know if it's a wall or the floor, and then I also don't know what the green is. So we have all this space. Just kind of curious what you guys think we could be doing with all this space.
I think like when I first saw it, I didn't even really look at the person, oops, at the bottom. So maybe if you brought them like more into the foreground and maybe made them bigger so that like maybe even we could see their screen, or if we could see like a reflection of them playing a game, or maybe they're holding a controller. So maybe just bring them closer to us, and then like the screenshots are maybe more in the background, like they're not paying attention to them, like sort of thing. But yeah, maybe making the person more obvious.
Could also just flip the person itself so that we're staring at the screen, where we can see the screen as opposed to seeing a person looking at a screen.
Yeah, almost like we're looking over their shoulder or something.
One thing I do think that's interesting is the scale of him. It almost looks like he's distant, and that kind of does play into that effect as well. So I think it could go either way. There could be a duality to it, like maybe one aspect we could see across his shoulder and see the screen, and maybe the other we just see him from afar. I don't know exactly. I also don't think I'm sold on the whole white background stuff. I think that a lot of these dialogues now in movies, they just have like the text bubbles like appearing, floating. So that could, that could potentially free up a lot of space in this overlapping kind of like ghostly looking, because I think a lot of the focus ends up being now like up here in this overlapping kind of stuff, where in reality we're focusing on the character or the person or in their head. I asked in terms of like, how might we see that he's playing games? Well, we could always have like sound effects coming out from that area. Other things relating to video games like around him, you know, if he's in his room playing games, like what does a gamer's room look like? You know, I'm assuming it's more than just a table and bare walls, right? So yeah, I think once you figure out the like overarching structure that you're having all the content sit, I would then further populate it by those like supplemental details. And it's also like, is it important that this is like iPhone related? I guess it doesn't really matter, but yeah, and the time and all, like a lot of it just seems like might be a different way to organize it, you know? Yeah, like somebody said, like, or I think Liv said, like, messages are behind him where he's not focusing on them. Some kind of thing like that where you're solidifying on how it reads to us, right? Like, how are we reading the image? But yeah, I think that the one big focal point I would make sure is that you give a little bit more detail to this, like, monitor and person, so we can tell it's a person right away. I think that's one of the bummers right now. Okay, got Eric here.
So my critique is on self-driving cars and the technology behind them at the moment. How, if people want to go completely autonomous, there's going to be there's a workaround that needs to be made to detect what is where and like what's more important. So what I have right here is a dilemma where a car can either hit a deer head on and endanger the driver, or swerve to miss the deer, hit the person, and keep the driver safe. And the second option is the one that's winning out because the main function of the car is to keep the driver safe. So that's basically the critique that I'm making and trying to say this is a dilemma that needs to be solved in a different way, basically. I know it might be a little bit difficult to read what's inside, especially like the yellow one. But like the deer, it just says avoid this object at all costs. And inside the person, it's hit object if necessary. And it just repeats that multiple times over in each.
I like the way you put the text like on each image. I think like I was able to read it and I think it makes sense for like what you're trying to say. Maybe like on the little like screen dashboard thingy, I didn't really realize that that was like supposed to be the car or like an overhead view of the car. So maybe, you know, signify that that's a car. I didn't really realize it at first.
This isn't really a critique, more just like a observation. Like when I saw the image, it reminded me like of like a game kind of, and the fact that like they don't even, the deer does, you can't even see like its face, or you can also not even see any like defining features of the person, kind of just tie into the fact that the computer just sees these as quote unquote like targets and just like shapes as opposed to like real people. So I really like how I just wanted to show that like you really drove that point home, and I really like it.
Yeah, I wanted to more so give the point of view of this is not a person view, this is a machine view of how a machine would take in the surroundings. Bernard mentioned this back in the critique last week, but like adding a grid and kind of going with that, I'm like, okay, like with a grid, I can like make it like a cyberspace sort of thing and just put pawns around this instead of actual things that would be recognizable to humans.
So like I see this as like a critique of like the self-driving car and maybe like the lack of regulation of like their rules. I don't know if there is like government regulation on like how self-driving cars like work or like what they're allowed to do, but maybe like tying in that aspect, like that maybe there's not enough regulation on like how they determine their targets or like whatever. Maybe that could bring into like a different aspect to the image. I'm not really
Alright,
sure
yeah.
how you would do it though. But yeah.
I mean, that's for me to figure out and work around. So yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
I think that it could be beneficial to shift our perspective to the driver's seat.
Okay.
Because then it might hit the point home a little bit that we're like we're in the car. I don't know. It gives you a little bit more of that choice in your own. You know, if you're driving, then you have to be the one to take control. Whereas if you're like somebody in the back seat, you're just riding, right? Like, so if you put us as a viewer in that driver's seat, it might make us feel a little bit more like, oh, well, aren't we supposed to do something right here? You know?
Right.
I also think that there's a little bit of context, but there's not much context that we're moving. It could be a parked car. So I think that there could be a couple things to really hit that point home.
Okay.
One of them could be you could outline the road on the computer screen, because then you'd get. I think the computer screen is the only real spot where you do see that the car might be at an angle, like it's swerving, but it's not super evident. So maybe you can give a couple other indicators towards those points, like, you know,
like more movement lines, more just like
stuff. Like warning arrows, like pointing to the left or something to indicate like, oh, go this way.
Okay.
I think that the character in yellow would benefit from having him behind the keep driver safe as like a secondary thought.
Okay.
You know, where he's not.
That's partly why I made him in yellow as well, because like red is the immediate and yellow is like, yeah, like thinking of like
right, and it's clicking, but it's like, okay, how do we tweak it so it's like evident right from the get-go, like, oh, we're swerving, we're gonna miss this deer, but oh, then we're gonna hit this person. Oh no.
Right.
So I think just a little bit of that is missing. You know, and it could be like maybe he doesn't need a background behind him. I don't know, because like maybe this is more legible to read and that's a little less legible to read or something.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good choice or not, but I also thought too, like, is there anything clever that you could slap in for the review mirror? Like something about like looking back for some reason in context to like looking forward.
Right.
I'll
keep working on that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's there.
It gives a lot to think about, and definitely there's
something there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You also might try putting oh, sorry. The other thing that I wanted to mention is in terms of, I was talking about a road here, but I think having like road lines out here would really like hammer home the fact that, oh, you're going across the middle line.
Right.
But I also, you might want to try and see what this might look like if you like stretch it out to be the full background.
Okay.
Is it legible? Is it more of that text as image?
I was playing with just trying to manipulate the text and actually like blend it together. Like I took keep driver safe in one font and then actually changed it into wingdings and started blending the two together. And
oh, nice.
That. So I think I can definitely try to expand that and play with
cool
more of that a little bit.
Did you do each individual letter?
Yeah, I did each individual letter.
Interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like that these little like weird symbol moments, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, continuing on.
So mine's a focus on climate change, and so I have it as like industries, like as a dark looming part, and like with like things like the ozone problems, CO2 and fossil fuels dripping off from industries, while the light bulb's supposed to represent like renewable energy, and there's like this like the text right now is a stand-in, but I want to put in like statistics like the planet's like this much and like we're causing this much damage, the forest fires in California, like that type of stuff. So it's like melting onto the light bulb, and the colors of the word supposed to represent like earth, like give it the earth-like feel. So
or wait, I don't know if I fully understand. What's the white representing? You said earth-like feel.
no, I was talking about like the colors of the word. So like the green represent like it's supposed to make it look like earth, like the words. So like the green is like the continent, the blue is the ocean, the other green is another continent. It's supposed to represent earth. So like I have it melting onto the light bulb, and like the text is filled in for like I'm gonna replace it for like statistics on like news articles like oh the forest fires, like how much like exponential growth in pollution and all that stuff.
So the globe's melting over a light bulb.
Mm-hmm. And the light bulb's supposed to be like renewable energy, and yeah.
Trying to process it through my head. So are you trying to say that the light bulbs, this renewable energy is powering the globe, or?
Like I at first I wanted to make it so like the light bulbs, the like it's lighting up the darkness, and the darkness is representing like the pollution, industries, CO2, fossil fuels, that stuff, which is why I have the gradient going downwards, and like towards the bottom it's lighter where the light bulb is.
I think I'm getting hung up more on like the meaning of the light bulb in context to whatever is melting on top of it. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
My first thought when I saw this was like, I kind of like in my head, it represented like the industry is almost like a rain cloud, and like the stuff coming down from it, like whatever weather is like coming out of the cloud. I know like raining ash and like stuff like that can happen when there's like a lot of forest fires. So that might like, if you made that into a cloud that's like raining some sort of horrible weather like downwards, maybe that would represent how those things are impacting weather. As for like the white, I guess I don't know, maybe like the light bulb can be like turned on and like have light emitting around it to show that it's like a positive thing. Yes, maybe like the light bulb isn't gray and maybe it's like a different color from the rest of the image, which is supposed to be kind of like dark and gloomy, maybe.
Yeah, I think the light bulb with this dripping thing, it's like it's coming off as like a really powerful visual, like a design visual, but the context isn't clicking in my head.
I don't know. I feel like it kind of represents like old industries maybe suffocating like renewable like energy and like how it's not, I don't know, progressing because of the industry stuff raining down on it.
Yeah, I wanted to give it the feel of like it's weighing down, which is yeah. I guess I didn't convey it too well.
Well, I think that could work, but if you're situating like the globe itself is weighing down renewable energy, it doesn't quite make sense because the renewable energy is also part of the globe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if you switch the subtlety to like yeah, if you switch it from like this is like non-renewable kind of covering this renewable. I don't know. I don't know. This is like the most hung up I've been on one. I haven't seen this yet either. I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put the image of the earth and like the colors and stuff on the actual light bulb so that the stuff that's dripping on top of it looks like it's covering the earth in something negative rather than the stuff on top of it being the earth.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold the earth thing. But in general, maybe this will help while you're piecing it together. We could reconvene on Wednesday about it. To Liv's point about light shining out of out from under here. Maybe there's a couple of like gaps or holes where that light could also be emitting out from, kind of like shining rays out from. And then wherever that shining is casting onto, maybe there's words there that it's affecting those words in a way. And, I think that duality could help. I'm just still trying to like even piece together the positive, negative sides of this thing. Because even a light bulb like can be representative of original discovery of electricity in general, and that wasn't necessarily not all power, not all electricity is clean, renewable electricity. That's why I'm like trying to piece it together in my head. Is the logic kind of coming through? But yeah. So I guess you have to just recontextualize it, and we'll take a look again on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
I think we covered everybody. Oh, Shub is not here, but his thing's here. So he must, I don't, okay. Actually, I'm gonna look his statement, and we can cover his, because he's international. So I'll have him take a look at the video. Let's continue on, and then we'll go back. I'll read his statement for him.
Okay, so my concept is about how social media has encouraged like our age group to be more involved in politics and like voting and stuff. So right now I have the flag, which is gonna like symbolize like younger people actually voting, and I'm gonna put text in it eventually. And then the background I have like quotes kind of reasons like why younger people wouldn't usually vote. So yeah, and then I have like the hashtag vote and around it, or somehow I'm going to incorporate like social media icons to like tie it all together that like social media is the reason why younger people are voting. But
I like the text in the background, like definitely having like the sayings.
Mhm.
But I think it would work better as maybe a speech bubble instead of like just lines, because then it makes it feel more personal, make it feel like, oh, somebody is actually saying this instead of just
Yeah.
a list of things people could say, sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Maybe to add to that, different font selections as well.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted. I just did this at first because I thought it looked very like uniform, I guess, which it does because it's one font. But yeah, I could definitely do different like fonts for each saying or something to make it like look different.
Can you give us a little bit of the cable, the plug?
Okay, that I don't really know. I don't have to keep that, but I thought it like just symbolized like the whole idea of like social media and technology being the reason, and it might make more sense once I add the actual social media icons. It might not. I don't know. I kind of wanted to do them like against the wire going with it. So I don't know. I'm like I don't need to do that, but it just made more sense for right now, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because like as I read the voting coming down, at one part of me is like thinking, oh, this is multiple people saying it, but it's not. It doesn't, maybe not really so much because it's the same font. But then it almost looks like it's falling down, like a repetition of over frames or something. But they're a little bit too spaced out for that. So but it does give that sense of like coming down maybe in general because it's fading to the bottom, and which almost gives you that notion of like planting a flag in something. And so when I looked at the plug at the end, I'm like, well, if that's representing something to this, could you have the plug at the bottom of the pole instead? Like you're literally,
Oh,
like planting, like the flag
yeah,
on
that's
the
a
moon
good
kind of
idea.
thing.
Yeah.
But what is it being planted into? I think that would have to be the kind of defining element, I guess, because it does seem like you're giving these reasons for voting, and you're maybe you're having different people say to vote, and it's almost like you're plugging in, like the country's plugged in, America's plugged in to vote, but kind of stops there from readability for me.
Well, in the flag too, like in the stripes, I was gonna have like more positive quotes because like in the back right now they're like negative quotes about like voting. So in the flag, I was gonna have like I voted, like I registered to vote, like I just stuff like that. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Anybody else have a last thought here?
I'm thinking like the plug can maybe go into like can be like put into like someone's like head or brain or something, like kind of like plugging in young voters' minds because like their head is not in it or whatever. Maybe that's the thought I have.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
So what do you what's the overarching like final element that you're trying to say about this?
I guess just that like social media, like even though it has like a bunch of negative impacts, like one of the positive ones that I think have come out of it are like younger people being involved in politics and like knowing what's going on. And like social media is like the main reason for it.
Okay. So I don't feel any of that vibe here though. Like it's not fully illustrated to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that notion of like plugging in the flag could benefit really.
Mm-hmm. And I could try to like plug it into like a phone or something to incorporate the social media instead of just having like icons.
Yeah, maybe a plug at the bottom of the flagpole, and then like there's a phone below it that has like a plug showing on it.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, you might want to change the perspective to be portrait.
Yeah.
Because I think the flagpole is a little short for that like size of flag anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's the missing piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like why are we looking at this, or like what's the takeaway?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And just so maybe I can just email Shub about his, I'll just have it at the end. Covered Demaya's, right? We covered everybody else's, I believe, right? I don't know if anybody uploaded anything late. Okay, so we have 2 left.
All right, so the concept behind my project is like mainly focused around the cell phone and like how ads and like notifications are targeted to keep you like hooked on using your phone. So I think where I want to go with this is having like in the background like notifications and sort of just other forms of text to like really drive in like the overload of like the amount of notifications that you receive on your phone. Um, and the whole like point of like the black hole type thing is that like you're being sucked in. So like that's where like the phone is like the center of it, I was thinking.
So I think maybe a good way to incorporate some more type to this, because I feel like that needs to be a little bit more predominant as well. Like have some like sayings like being sucked in to the black hole to show just like the direction of everything's like collapsing in.
Yeah, I feel like with the stars and everything, you have like a lot of space and opportunity to like add text, maybe like going into like, yeah, like a circular motion that shows that it's like really all focusing in onto the phone. And then maybe like even like dark text behind in like the black hole area, maybe that almost like you can read it, but it's almost blending into the black hole of like maybe the negative side effects of stuff like this, or like why it's bad to be addicted to your phone, like something like that.
Well, the one thing that is coming up to my mind is the notion of like singularity, and I think that topic point might be worth investigating a little bit more to try to take some cues from like like what a black hole could be representative of. And I just did a quick Google search, and like could be representing unforeseeable changes to human civilization. So, you know, they always talk about like in movies and such, like it's like a point of no return kind of thing, right? Where you reach this point and like there's no going back. And so I think that would have to kind of be implemented here somehow, or you could craft it into where it could be implemented, where not only are you having things being pulled in, but kind of situating that they are being pulled in because there's no way of going back, right? And so to kind of really think about that sense of times moving forward, I think. So anyway, what else do you guys think?
Is like what's on the phone supposed to be like important? Because I don't know if it's just because like I'm looking at it through like a screen share, but I can't really read what's on the phone. So if that's important, maybe make it more legible. I don't know.
Yeah, I have the Google searches. Why are there so many ads popping up on my phone or something like that? I forget exactly what I put, but like basically just took a screenshot and then layered that on top of the phone to like give the screen some content.
So it's not specifically anything in relating to the theme then? Is that what you're saying?
Sorta like I want to like that is like the focus, like why is this going on, and then like basically the mayhem is everything in the background of just everything, all the notifications and pop-ups and ads that I'm going to add in.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of visualize exactly what's going to be going on. Do you have any questions for us?
Nothing at the moment.
All right, let's finish up with Shubes here. Looks like he is still at an early point. I haven't seen his yet either, but I haven't heard from him yet. So it's good we're getting something here from him. So, and I'll follow up with him. So I'm just going to read what his proposal is because that's all I have for context. But so my audience will be anyone that uses a visual mode of news consumption, such as a television. He wants to convey the hypocritical selective coverage of news channels and the political manipulations, as well as corruption, the selection of this material, and the way in which it is covered entails. Probably should have read through this to get a consensus, but the technology he wishes to use is a television, and more precisely news channels with large audience. This relates to politics as must be specifically in a country like India that despite being the world's largest democracy is slowly moving towards an autocratic method of ruling. Kind of going through any other points here. He said his home country of India is experiencing an economic and social breakdown, utilizing several media strategies to woe the public, descent towards unimportant and trivial controversial rather than crucial. Okay, so like smoke and mirrors with technology his country is using, and kind of focusing on consumption of this news and media through devices like a television. So what do you guys think? Is this all clicking? I don't know if, can you all even read what's on the screen here then? I think it's also helpful if I go a little bit larger, because you guys can't see your images on my on this, right? I see like all of your webcams. You don't see that, right?
I can still see that up top, like
I can
above.
see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's your own view then. Okay. I was pretty sure.
One critique that I would have, instead of having things like slanted and parallel, especially, I'm not exactly sure the context of like what he's trying to go for, but since it seems like the elected, like the democracy is basically kind of being compressed under the news channels and stuff like that. So instead of having things vertically, have it more horizontally with democracy on the bottom, kind of like being pushed down instead of kind of them having them equally based.
I think like the most powerful aspect of this concept is that like news is kind of almost distracting us from what's really going on, and that like democracy is deteriorating, but the news isn't really talking about that. So maybe instead of having like the screen in the center and like stuff around it, maybe the screen can be like blocking like the truth or like the real reality of what's going on is like behind the TV. So like the TV is almost like distracting us from the deteriorating democracy, maybe to make it more obvious that it's like shielding us from like what's actually going on.
Yeah, and put a couple different screens, not just a TV, and then put a little bit of smoke there, smoke and mirrors. I think kind of like a composition embedding just those points alone, I think will really elicit like the meaning pretty clearly. I'm not quite sure what these ellipses are supposed to be for. Just like those party, like a congregate of those parties. Yeah, okay, like political. So just like different terminologies around them. How do you guys think he could visualize like each of these parties? I heard like it was, potentially might be more successful in like compression down onto the democracy, but like could he visualize it in a specific way? Like, should it be some kind of image that he's building with type? Any specific typeface is that he could explore other than what he's already using?
I mean, kind of going off of that, I think having a differentiation between the two, because since they are the same type for both, I feel having two separate ones could emphasize that better. And instead of just being compressed, maybe like a scale, like one like the balance scales sort of thing.
Going off of that, kind of making one a bit like also the combining the idea of like blocking the democracy with the news and whatnot, making one the elected autocracy bigger than democracy, because the sizing kind of shows like one is more important than the next, and like also maybe if they you like found different colors that represent certain things. Um, like this color represents kind of like evil, and then another color might represent like hope or something, like things like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of us are, qualified to speak specifically on things that are happening in India, but I would almost think that there's got to be some kind of more socially known um, topics that are talked about, and maybe like, does the Democratic Party have a very well-known well-known iconography or symbol or something like to that point that using that could say, okay, like in America it's different colors, or it's like um, an elephant and a donkey, right? Like, is there anything to associate that? Because it doesn't need to appeal to us necessarily. It could appeal to, this could be an image for um, people in India, right? Or it could be an image to be educating the rest of the world on things that are happening in India. And if so, is that like some kind of like warning? Oh, hey, don't let your country's mentality come to happen, like what's going on in India. Like, what's the underlying statement here? I guess that's kind of unknown. I think that would help kind of tie everything together if we knew exactly like who our audience is, and why we're presenting this stuff. Because out of all these images that all of you guys are making, you don't want to make it seem like you're just complaining, or you're one side of that political spectrum. If you are on the one side, like it should be more of like you're advocating for something rather than attacking. You know what I mean? So I think we had some helpful points for a lot of your guys' projects. Some of the stuff was like not fully fledged out, so it's a little tricky. But I guess the overarching goal now is to make sure everybody, you get your visual to the Facebook group. Today, I think I just updated it because it technically wasn't on there. So I'd like you all to get it up there today. I mean, most everybody here already has it, on the Google Drive anyway. But then get it up today so that like over this evening and or tomorrow, or if you're last minute, like Wednesday morning, people can give you feedback. Obviously, the earlier you get it on there, like you have a higher chance of making sure you get people to comment. If you don't get stuff in on time, like you might not get any feedback. So this class, I didn't finish this class. A lot of times the way I grade the first project is like, I check to see if everybody submitted it. And then I contact all those people. And then I go through and see all the files. And like, I'm like, you know what, there's a lot of back and forth. I just did the first class student by student grading. So the first class, everybody else has feedback on their project one, like Facebook critique. So if you want to comment tonight and you didn't get feedback yet, you can kind of see like what I said to other people. But right after class here today, I'm going to go and start on your guys's and just go down through the Facebook feedback from the first one. So you should probably get a notification this evening. I'll try to reply to each one of you that had given feedback. This way, like if you're missing something or lacking or whatever, you get a little bit clearer like thing you should be focusing on. The general consensus is like, just make sure you're following the guidelines that I put on the page. A lot of people go to reply and they don't really read the guidelines, but let's see if it should be on here. So reply to somebody, you know, if you can, that doesn't have feedback yet. Review the feedback. Oh, that I gave you, blah, blah, blah. So you'll be getting that. So yeah, again, giving one specific element of their work, and then give context as to why, right? Like, oh, I really enjoy the use of color. Okay, well, that's specific, but why are you enjoying it? Like, you know, how you should be like reading their statement, analyzing their use of color, and then saying why it works. You know, why are you liking it in relation to what they're trying to do, right? Then one negative specifics, same thing, right? But I wouldn't just go, if you can, I wouldn't just go completely off the wall and talk about something else. I would say then, you know, I really like your use of color for this particular reason. I think it works well within, you know, trying to show division or something, right? And then you could say, the one thing I might recommend is changing this because then the use of color doesn't really work. You know, like forming your negative component off of the positive, so it's kind of tying into one another. So the goal here is like, we don't need to all be giving tons of random types of like this and that. We're trying to think of like the one main element of somebody's work that deserves to be talked about, and then like the positives and negatives about that one specific area, right? So similar, like when you give a comment in class, you're not really going off and back and forth. We're really trying to like talk about one thing, but now because we have the time to sit there and think and write it out, it's more along the lines of a practice for you guys to learn like kind of a more pleasing and polite and accurate way of giving feedback within type, right? Like writing. And, you know, especially because we're online, it seems more fitting, you know, to be able to get a little bit more experience with that writing. And then tying it up, like what's one tool that you could be using? And this should be based on like some of the feedback you already gave, you know, like, oh, I really like your use of color, but maybe utilize that into some gradients within these areas that I was talking about that aren't activated or whatever. So that's generally what I speak of the most when you guys get feedback here. It's really just like, oh, you didn't say anything, you know, negative specific. And so as long as you're kind of going through and being a little bit more critical on those things, like that's really all it is. I just wanted to, since we have a couple minutes, I figured I'd talk about it now as well. Anywho, any other questions before we break for the day?